welcome everyone. Today I have Melanie Adkins, owner of Checklist Media with me. Hey, welcome Melanie.
Hi, thanks for having me.
You bet, I appreciate you taking time to visit. Hey, would you give, I know your background and your history a bit, but would you mind sharing a little bit about your personal background and then how it came about that you established Checklist Media?
Sure. Yeah, Checklist Media is my agency, and I established it last year after some soul searching about what I really wanted to invest my time in and what I really wanted to be able to do to help businesses around me. I've been involved in marketing for 20 years. I've done event management, and I've worked at nonprofits and a variety of offices, and I've worked a lot of volunteer positions and a lot of committee positions throughout the years. And always came across the same types of barriers in businesses. And I finally was able to figure out that that's what I wanted to use. The information that I used from helping pass these barriers is what I wanted to be able to do with an agency of my own. And so I'm able to serve as like a contractor to help pull in all the different pieces that it takes to get your marketing up and running from a whole point of view.
Yeah, terrific. I know, I know you, I've spent time on your website and I know about your services, but tell us if you would, where the name Checklist Media came from and how that ties into you've got a fairly substantial list of services that you provide for businesses. So could you just share a little bit about that?
We do, sure. We do provide a lot of different kinds of services, and the name Checklist is how I feel when I talk to business owners and when I've been in an office with managers and with owners who are hyper focused on growing the business, and they're hyper focused on the skill that they have, whether it's real estate or any other nonprofit. They're hyper focused on their skill. And to ask them to become a marketing expert and decide what holes to fill is like impossible, because it's a whole other industry. If you want to be a marketing expert, that's a whole thing. And so I always felt like I knew that what these leaders needed was a list to go from. They don't want to be bogged down with the details. They don't want to be bogged down with having to decide what to do. They want a list of things that they could do so they can pick and choose what they're ready to prioritize. And that's really what I've tried to convey to my clients, is say, if you want to do all the things in the world, here's a list of them. If you want to just pick the few that you're ready for, let's narrow it down and prioritize. But when any company scales, they're moving from one notch to the next, and they just have to know what to do next without having to become an expert themselves. So I hope to be able to convey that in who I'm working with, and say,
yeah, that's great. And so
narrow it down.
You help them narrow that down, analyze what's really beneficial for them at that stage in their development.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And we always start with a conversation. We start with, it might take an hour or so to kind of sift through and find out what they want to accomplish or what they think they need to do next versus what they already have in place, and kind of fill in those gaps and say, well, do you have this already functioning? Do you have this up and running? Have you started this yet? What things are you already doing yourself, or what could you assign inside your own office? What could you get taken care of to have that up and running? Let's figure out a map, a plan of where you are and where you could be. That's what I like to do, is to be able to help them navigate that.
Yeah, that's terrific. It's interesting. I can really relate to what you're saying. Because I do video, people assume that I do social media marketing, that I'm an expert at that, or that I build websites. I get those questions fairly frequently.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really comfortable just saying, no, I don't do either of those. Just what you say, it really takes a dedicated look at those. You really have to dedicate your time and your professional development to understanding those areas to be proficient at it.
Absolutely. They're all specialties. And one thing I try to remind people is that when you look at the big picture of what's happened in our world, Google is only 20 years old and Facebook is only 16 years old. And so all of us who have been doing business, or people that have owned their businesses for 30 years, things have changed dramatically when they already had a specialty to begin with. So if you've been in real estate your whole life, or if you've been in restaurants your whole life, just because Facebook exists doesn't mean that you switched your specialty. And just because online marketing exists doesn't mean that you've become an expert in that. So there's a lot of catching up to do, and those things change rapidly. They change constantly. And we're totally at the whim of Google and Facebook. Those companies decide everything. We don't have a say in what they do. So it's constantly keeping up with those things. And if you're an expert in that industry, that's what your job is. If you're an SEO expert, then you know all about SEO and how to keep up with Google and how to change and what to tweak. If you're a website designer who focuses and spends their career building sites and working with plugins and integrating different things, then that's what your specialty is. But you can't assume that every person can take on that wealth of knowledge. I mean, it needs to be recognized as an entire industry itself and not something that you just pick up on the side.
Absolutely. Yeah.
That's part of what inspired me to finally open the agency, because I was wanting to do some personal growth while I was helping other companies and consulting for other companies and doing small, helping them fill the gaps in their companies. I wanted to do some learning of my own. So I said, this is the year that I'm going to just hit all these workshops. I'm going to go to an SEO workshop, and I'm going to go to a social workshop, and I'm going to do a newsletter workshop, and I'm just going to scoop up more and more information about all these things so I can really just do all of them.
Yeah, that's fantastic. Yeah.
Every time, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was just going to say, and it does appear, and I know you've talked a little bit about social media marketing and SEO and that sort of thing. Would you just kind of share briefly about the compendium of services that you can offer businesses?
Yeah, absolutely. Once I started going to those workshops, I realized it was impossible to be an expert in every category. That's why I wanted to become a broker of those types of things. And so I work with a team of professionals that goes several layers deep. We have web designers that specialize in WordPress. We have SEO experts who specialize in organic SEO and the type of SEO that's based on backlinks, which is a whole other layer of information. We have writers that can help you with blog posts. We have newsletter providers that can organize your newsletter content for you monthly and help you pull that together. We have social media posting where we can do anywhere from one time a week to more times a week, depending on what your budget is and what you're interested in. And we provide listing services, which is sometimes overlooked by companies. It's like the old school of the yellow pages. Like in the past, you would just sign up for the yellow pages and pay for that every year. Now there's like 300 different places that you need to be listed so that people can find you when they're searching just in Google Maps or GPS when they're driving around, or if they're searching whatever database, construction managers. So listings is one thing. And then review management, we can do review management. So if you're a larger company like a restaurant or real estate property management where you're pushing out tons of clients and you have hundreds to pull from, then we can do review management and try to collect all those reviews and respond to each one of them and manage the responses. So we do have quite a few different tools, and not everybody needs all of them. Sure. Or not everybody needs them all to be outsourced. Some people can handle those perfectly on their own. So I like to help people decide, you're capable of doing a blog on your own at home. I encourage you to do it, and I'll coach you a little bit on how to do it. If you hate writing and that's not your thing, then we're happy to take it off your plate for you. But if writing is not, if that's not something that weighs people down, then I encourage them to do it themselves. But there's a lot of pieces to the puzzle.
Absolutely. Yeah, very good. Say, I'm curious, Melanie, what have you found in terms of, I know we've all undergone some changes. We've had to stay at home for a period of time. We've had to adjust our outlook, our attitudes, likely just our way of approaching business. What have you found, both for your own business, if anything, and for your clients? What sort of changes have you found, and what positive things have come out of this? Are there new skills that you or your clients, or new technology that you've adapted for your business that's ended up actually being beneficial?
Yeah, well, actually, like what we're doing right here is a perfect example of being on Zoom and being face-to-face. I have several of my clients are out of state. It's common for me to speak with people out of state, and I love having it be a norm to talk to them on Zoom and to communicate that way without feeling like you can't ever see them. It gives you a reason. It's a norm in our society now to hop on and talk to people in person. And I appreciate that very much. I think it's great to have that connection. And I have always, I have worked out of my home, and I have always done that. And so for me, that part has been a relatively easy transition. I've loved staying right where I am and being able to work from here and being able to network with people who are now on Zoom. I love that the groups have been able to switch over and accommodate everybody. So it's worked out well for me. I've talked to a lot of clients who are just interested in building up their online presence because they know now more than ever that it matters. Like when you're limited in person, you have to use online to get your message across. So it's great to be able to help those people who realize that it's time to beef up. So
yeah, it's interesting. It seems like we've all, as you said, we've all made these adjustments. And I know that for myself, I recognize as well that online presence is terrifically important at this point, because I have not been out to a physical networking meeting for several months at this point.
sure.
So yeah, so that's important for all of us. But so before we take off here, any last words of wisdom, any last words of advice that you would give businesses?
What I try to help people see, and sometimes have to have the conversation over and over, is that when it comes to marketing, when it comes to online marketing, that there won't be a silver bullet. There won't be a silver bullet approach that finally brings in all the customers that you were hoping for. It's important to know, it's important to know that when you study marketing or when you're involved in marketing, you have to be able to take an integrated approach and not be afraid to change your mindset and understand that there might be 8 or 10 different kinds of pieces that you use to do your marketing, and all of them work together. And one piece alone, like if you add a newsletter in and add a blog in and redo your website and get social media, all those things together strengthen your core. They're all strengthening so that you can get in front of clients and they're familiar with you and they trust you because they've seen you from a million angles. And that helps you when it comes time for your sales discussion. When it comes time to close the customer and talk to them and have a sales conversation, they're already familiar with you because they've seen you in all those places. However, it's not to say that one of those things will all of a sudden bring in all your customers for you by themselves. It's the combination of all the things together that really strengthens your brand over time, or your entire company. It's not just your brand, but all of you. So I've had that conversation many times to help people understand the difference. So that's what I would advise, is to try to say, what's my whole ecosystem look like? Am I doing all the things that I'm capable of doing? Can I plan to do the next one next year? Or setting yourself for a whole wellness look at things.
That's great. That's great. I really appreciate that. Hey, thank you so much. I really enjoyed visiting with you today. I appreciate your taking time to share your expertise with us.
Thank you so much, Tim. I appreciate it. And thanks for doing this for everybody.
Absolutely. You bet. Take care.